Hey, this is Gecko Mayhem, this is another Godforge video. The Godforge beta is drawing closer every day. Who's hyped? Now's the time to get ready to hit the ground running. So let's crack into it. I recently covered 5 rare heroes worth watching during the beta. Now it's time to take things up a level and take a look at the epics. The focus of this first beta will be the campaign, dungeons, and general PvE progression. This is a good time to look at epic heroes who stand out for their overall usefulness and impact on your account. The epic heroes I've chosen for this video may not end up being the top epic heroes in Godforge. Kits are still open to change, and the beta is going to teach us a lot. But based on the publicly available kits and what looks valuable for progression, team survivability, enemy control, and damage, these are the epic heroes I would be watching closely. The official Godforge website also makes it clear that hero data is still subject to change before launch. Before I kick into the top 5, I want to give an honourable mention. The twin brothers Spelunk and Honourable. These epic brawlers look particularly interesting when paired together. I haven't put either of these into the top 5, as they feel more like an interesting synergy than broadly useful standalone picks. But that synergy could turn out to be very strong, so it makes them worth keeping an eye on. In our Epic Heroes collaboration video, we saw the brothers as a pair of heroes that really play into each other's kits with strong combo potential. They bring a lot more value when fighting together. That makes them more interesting and possibly more viable than a lot of other epic brawlers. Honourable's basic has a chance to place attack down 2 for a turn, and Spelunk's can place defense down 2, both great debuffs for weakening their enemies. And here's the first synergy. They each join in with the other's basic attack. Honourable's core can decrease the target's turn meter and increase his brother's turn meter by 20%. Fully awakened, this becomes a turn meter steal. Spelunk's core isn't quite as strong, inflicting more damage if the enemy has higher max HP. However, he places Sharpen 2 on himself for 2 turns, thus increasing his strong hit chance and damage. On to the ultimates. Firstly, the brothers increase each other's divinity by 20%, creating a great synergy with their ults. Honourable's is an AoE, with a chance to place Sleep for 1 turn on any target with higher HP. Otherwise, it increases his turn meter. Spelunk's is also an AoE. Remember the Sharpen buff from his core? He has a chance to place Stun for 1 turn on any enemy he strong hits. Fully awakened, this becomes a guaranteed strong hit. Sleeping and stunning your enemies? What's not to like? The synergy continues into the passives. When awakened 3, they both receive 20% reduced damage from crits. When Honourable receives a critical hit, both brothers' turn meters are increased by 5%. And like much of their synergy, Spelunk's passive is the mirror opposite. When he inflicts a crit against an enemy, it increases the damage of his next attack by 40%. If you happen to pull one of these brothers during the beta, I would definitely keep an eye out for the other. Standalone, they may not be the most useful brawlers in the game, but they could end up being one of the more fun and explosive combinations to build. As we move into the top 5, I'd like to start with an epic who brings a lot of disruption and control, even if he's not quite the monster he was in Alpha. I've given the number 5 spot to Mordred, who still looks like a very strong epic disruptor for the beta. He may have been toned down from what he was during the alpha waves, but he still brings a lot of control and utility to a team. Starting with his basic, he attacks one enemy with a strong chance to place Corrupt. That alone is already a nasty debuff to have at your disposal. Mordred's core is an AoE attack with a chance to place Confuse on each target. That gives him immediate wave control, and it's part of what made him stand out so much during alpha. His ult is another AoE, and it gains extra value depending on what is already on the enemy team. If a target is under Confuse, damage is increased. If a target's under Corrupt, he decreases their turn meter. And at Awakening 3, if a target is under both debuffs, he strips shields and barriers before attacking. Mordred's passive is where he gets even more disruptive. When attacked by their allies, enemies have a chance to reflect damage. That becomes messy for the enemy team, and exactly the kind of thing that can throw fights into more chaos. Mordred looks valuable for PvE because he brings reliable wave control, creates a lot of disruption, and still looks like one of the clearest epic options if you want a strong control hero. He may not be the uncontested king of disruption he felt like during the alpha waves, but he still looks like one of the best disruptors to grab during beta. If you want an epic to help manage waves and keep the enemy team off balance, Mordred still stands out. Mordred's all about disrupting the enemy's flow, but if you want an epic who brings raw damage while still bringing some utility, this next one is worth keeping an eye out for. Ishtar takes the number 4 spot. She looks like one of the most interesting epic slayers in the game right now, because she brings more than just damage. She seems like the kind of slayer who can pressure waves while still giving you useful utility. Plus, doesn't her character model look incredible? I think so. Ishtar's basic is already impressive. It attacks all enemies and has a strong chance to decrease the duration of a random buff on each target. If they don't have a buff, she simply does more damage instead. That's a great way to make a basic feel relevant. Her core is another AoE, and this time, she extends debuffs on each target. If a target has no debuff, she instead decreases their resistance, stacking over time. So whether the enemy is buffed, debuffed, or neither, she still brings great value. Ishtar's ultimate gives her retaliate and attacks one enemy. If she defeats the target, she gains a chunk of divinity. If they survive, she has a strong chance to place charm on them instead. At Awakening 3, that retaliate becomes protected, which is excellent. Ishtar looks valuable for a PvE team because she brings strong AoE pressure, manipulates buffs and debuffs, and still has meaningful single target utility through her ult. She's the kind of damage dealer I like to see in a game like Godforge. She's more than just a glass cannon. She brings damage, but she also gives you more to work with. And that's why I've given her the number 4 spot in this list. Ishtar brings great damage and utility, but if you want a hero who does more to stabilize your team and hold difficult content together, this next epic is one of the strongest defenders I've seen. Coming in at number 3, we have Ryūjin, who looks like an epic defender with a solid kit, and being an eternal hero makes him valuable right off the bat. Ryūjin's basic is an AoE that has a chance to place attack down 2 on each enemy. That's already a strong opening tool for a defender, because weakening incoming damage is always useful. I mentioned this in my top 5 rares video, with Nebuchadnezzar, who can place attack down 1 with his core. Ryūjin's core then places ward on himself and protect 2 on his allies. That's a very strong combination for a tank, because he's both protecting the team and making his defenses much harder to break through. At Awakened 3, he also increases the duration of all buffs on allies by 1 turn, which is excellent support value on top of the team protection. His ult is another AoE, and one of the more interesting defensive skills in the pool. It decreases the rank of each debuff on allies and heals them. If they have no debuffs, it places a shield on them. This isn't a full cleanse, but it's still a strong way to reduce pressure on your team. Ryūjin's passive ties neatly into the protect mechanic. If allies under protect have their turn meter decreased, they gain divinity. If their divinity is decreased, they gain turn meter instead. That means he actively pushes back against enemy control effects, which is a very nice piece of utility for a defender. And finally, let's not forget his leader bonus, which is a juicy 19% speed in all battles. Ryūjin looks strong for campaign progression, tougher waves, dungeons, and any content where mitigation and consistency are important. He looks like one of the most complete epic defenders available. Strong buffs, strong protection, a very useful ultimate, and some interesting control mechanics. That's more than enough to justify his sitting at number 3. Ryūjin looks like a very complete defender, but this next hero still eclipses him, because she feels even more proven, more broadly useful, and more relevant to what players are likely to experience in the beta. Brynhild takes the number 2 spot. She was already a standout during Alpha, and even now she looks like one of the strongest all-round epic defenders for the upcoming beta phase. She helps make difficult content more manageable through mitigation, control, and team support. On her basic, Bryn attacks one enemy and has a chance to place attack down 2. This isn't as strong as Ryūjin, as it is single target, but it gives you more control over who to place that debuff on. Her core places defense up 2 on all allies, then places intercept on the ally with the lowest HP. So she's not just protecting the team in a general sense, she's also watching out for the ally who needs the most help. When fully awakened, the intercept buff becomes party-wide, which is huge. Bryn's ult is one of the main reasons she stands out. It can be used while she is afflicted by a disable. She instantly removes disables from herself and places Radiance 2 on all allies. If she's awakened 3, it also places a shield on all allies. That's some decent mitigation packed into one ability. Her passive is fantastic, placing a shield on allies when they fall below 50% HP. This adds even more protection over the course of a fight. Brynhild looks strong for campaign progression, dungeons, wave survival, and supporting almost any team through difficult content. All in all, she looks like one of the safest epic heroes to build during the beta. She protects her team in multiple ways, reduces enemy pressure, and stays useful across a broad range of PvE content. One of the main reasons I've given Brynhild a higher spot than Ryūjin is that she is a lot more accessible. Everyone is basically guaranteed to get her as an early epic. Plus, her leader bonus, although not as juicy as 19% speed, is a solid 20% defense in all battles. Brynhild was very close to the top spot, but in the end, I wanted to give number 1 to an epic who looks like she can do a little bit of everything you would expect from a premium support hero. I've given the top spot here to Cleopatra. She looks like one of the most complete epic supports in the game. If her kit performs the way it reads on paper, she could end up being one of the best epics you can pull for beta PvE. Cleopatra is an eternal invoker, already placing her high up on the wanted epics list. Scaling off speed, her basic attacks an enemy twice, with each hit increasing the turn meter of all allies by 3%. That's already a great start, as even her basic is helping her team move faster. Her core is a big AoE heal that also restores destroyed HP. That's massive value for an invoker, because it means she's not just topping people up, she's helping the team recover from longer fights and more punishing content. Cleo's ult revives an ally with HP and turn meter, attacks all enemies, and places resistance up 2 on all allies. At Awakening 3, that resistance buff becomes protected. Revive is already one of the most powerful abilities in the game, but stacking that together with team resistance makes her feel like a very solid support hero. Her passive restores destroyed HP whenever a buff on an ally expires or is removed, which means she keeps feeding sustain into the team over time, rather than simply through direct healing. In other words, she doesn't just save fights, she stabilizes her teammates before they collapse. Cleopatra looks strong for campaign progression, dungeon teams, keeping important allies alive, bringing them back into the fray, and making longer fights much more manageable. Cleopatra looks like exactly the kind of invoker people would want to invest in. She brings speed, sustain, destroyed HP recovery, and a revive. That's an excellent package for beta content, and it's why I've given her the #1 spot. Before I wrap up, there is one more epic I want to mention, and that's Beowulf. I chose not to include him in the top 5, because he feels more specialized than the other top epics. But if you get him, you will very likely want to build him. Beowulf was already described as the boss killer during Alpha, and that still seems to be his identity now. He's built around stacking damage against bosses and brawlers, dealing max HP damage, and scaling harder as the fight goes on. He also has a Pantheon boss leader bonus, which tells you very clearly what kind of job he's meant to do. So, while I wouldn't rank Beowulf above the more generally useful epics in this video, I would still be very happy to have him on my account. He looks like exactly the kind of specialist hero you would build for boss content. Heading into Beta 1, these are the epic heroes I would be watching most closely. Not because they're guaranteed to be the absolute best epics in the game, but because they all bring something useful to progression, team synergy, and success in beta content. That's what I would focus on more than anything going into the beta. Not just who looks flashy, but heroes who actually look useful and bring something epic to your team. Who would you place as the top epics coming into the Godforge beta? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Gecko Mayhem, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.